That's right. We're back. It's Beer and Ball. It's Aaron and Bill. It's Cheesehead TV 97.3, the game. And it's another frustrating Packers loss. Just when we thought we were
Mm.
turning a corner, Bill, the 2022 Green Bay Packers decided to show up again on Thursday night against the Titans. Let me ask you this, because I've spent the day producing various content, and I feel like I've spent the entire day expressing my frustrations with this team. Let's open up the floor for someone else's voice. What's the most frustrating thing for you when it comes to this team? Because I mean, after what feels like a broken record on Thursday night, there are ample things to choose from.
That's a good question. I'd start it with, and I think it's been one of the more discussed ones. It's the lack of being able to be complimentary, right? Like, not that I
Good.
don't think they can, because I
Yeah.
think that they are talented. I think they're
Yes.
more
Agreed.
talented than in just about every single game, Nags, this year that they've showed. But the inability to build upon the momentum that you get mid-game. Really, the only time we've seen that in the last like damn near 2 months was against Dallas, which is more and more becoming the game that teams win that you probably shouldn't.
Right.
Right? Like it's
Right.
starting to look more like that one game that bad teams win when you probably shouldn't have won that game. You probably shouldn't have lost that game. They may have happened in back-to-back weeks with Detroit and Dallas.
Right.
And the juxtaposition is, Nags, they can never be they can never be good on both sides of the ball for seemingly 35 minutes, which is a really concerning trait for a team that is young. Yes, I think we all anticipated we'd feel better about at this point.
Yes.
And I also think that you would, like, I asked Andy Herman this on the radio on Monday, where it was, by Thanksgiving, you're supposed to kind of know who you are,
You're supposed
right?
to have an identity.
You
Yeah.
you're
And the
supposed to have
Packers
an
have one.
identity.
They have one.
They have one, and it's brutally inconsistent. And that
Yes.
is, they're young. You knew there'd be growing pains, but you thought by this time you'd be markedly better. I think they're a little bit better, but it's not enough to be a real factor right now.
That's so interesting you say that, because that's something I have discussed a lot today and pretty much all week in regards to, at this point of the season, what did you expect to see? And
Yeah.
look, I think we've known where this was headed for a while. This team has not exactly shown up more often than not for a full 60 minutes. But you've seen flashes, and that's kind of what teases you, right? And that's what gets you excited if you're a Packers fan, especially coming off that Dallas win. You can see a path to victory. Run the football,
Yeah. Yep.
take advantage of turnovers. It's everything they did in that game. But what's concerning, kind of trying to like start to look forward, right? Like, yes, is there a path still to the playoffs? Sure. There's also an ability to tie a elephant's tail to a daisy hanging off a cliff and not have it fall, if you listen to physicists. But we live in reality. And when you look forward to where this team is headed, the concerning part for me is you can see a lot of problems that they had week 1 that are still there in week 11.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's coaching. That's
Yep.
this staff. That's where you look and you say, the young players, you're talking about the youth on this football team, and there certainly are many veterans, right? But the youth on this football team, who's getting better? Who's come along in this is stretch here from week 1 to week 11? Who can you say? We always talk about the biggest jumps for guys go from year 1 to year 2, right? Who in year
Yeah.
2 is playing markedly better than they did in year 1? Where is the kind of development for this team that really likes to lean into draft and develop? Where's that development coming from? Because right now, week 1, week 11, it looks like the same team to me. And that, again, projecting forward, this is a team that's going to have to kind of reconstitute itself this offseason. But
Yeah.
man, is this staff up to the task? It's that to me is a concern.
That's a really good point. And it then goes to, right, like I'll use Josh Myers for example, because I watch him
Right.
as much as I can.
Yep.
I thought by this point in the season you'd be looking at him being like, ooh, probably one of the
You've seen him
5 or
coming
6
on,
best
right?
centers
Yeah.
in the NFC, right? Like he was going to start making some pushes to be in, and I think Josh has gotten better. Like he's
I do
played
too.
better in just about every game. but he still has the head scratching mistake where you're like, hmm, you really thought that would kind of be coached out at this moment. And granted, he's 20, what, 23?
Right. And
And
still, what,
like,
now barely played a full season of ball, right? As
right,
far
because he missed
as
so many games last year. But I
right.
think that would be like the one example where you could look at and be like, okay, he is still getting markedly better
Mhm.
enough at a rapid enough pace to compete with a 38-year-old starting quarterback behind you who is going to be demanding AF every single.
Right.
Probably not. And like
Right.
that's the you've brought it up a bunch of different times, and I think it's a great point of the marriage between the front office and the coaching staff of what they expected the team to look like. And that's one where I think the front office has a point to say, we've given you this talent. Like we expected
Mhm.
a little bit more to be grown from it at this point. And then on the other side, they're like, well, hey, Isaiah McDuffie looks better than he did last year. Well, no shit. And he was hurt last year. So I mean,
And
like
he barely
as a
played,
I'm
right.
going through my mind of all the draft picks from a year ago. Royce Newman got benched. I mean, like you
Right.
can start going through the pecking order of second year
Eric
players.
Stokes did not look great prior to his injury. He
He
had been
looked to,
taken
he
advantage
had
of.
looked to taking a step back. Yep.
Yep.
And obviously Amari cut, Newman bench. You can go down the list. It's not great. That
Right.
being said, as I look at their young players, right now the dudes in 2022
I mean, this class,
look like they can ball.
this
Quay
class
has gotten a
looks
little bit better,
promising. Yep. I totally
right?
agree. Totally agree.
Obviously, the wide receivers look promising, and you start to see some Zach Tom. You and I have talked glowingly about. So
Yep.
it's a weird struggle where they just have not had enough built-in depth to sustain a couple of the brutal losses. But when you have some of those personnel losses, I hate to say it this way because I think it's kind of really unfair because the dude's 27 and walking into his prime. But two future Hall of Fame quarterbacks lose the number one receiver in football this year.
Yep.
And one of them's 4-7. One of them's going to go win the MVP.
Yep.
And
But I mean,
it's
to
been
be
a
fair though,
difficult line.
both teams for their respective quarterbacks had very different approaches in how they built
Thousand
the
percent.
offense around them.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think that's the greatest error the Packers made. Not in the sense that they didn't bring anyone in. Like I understand the idea of okay, we were 7-0 without Devontae with Matt and Aaron. We're gonna reshape this wide receiver core with a lot of youth. We'll have some,
Mm-hmm.
we'll sign a cheap vet. Randall Cobb's there, blah blah blah. Like I understood that approach, but the fact that the personnel group handed them a very specific type of offense and they flat out just refused to recognize it, that to me is head scratching,
Yeah.
where and then you throw in the fact that the quarterback has broken his thumb and they
Mm-hmm.
still flat out refuse to just button it up and run the ball. I get it's going to be ugly at times and I get it's going to be frustrating, but I mean, remember back in 2003 when Brett broke his thumb and they just handed the ball off to Mon Green like 4 billion times a game? They would bring in
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Barry, go U71, and they said, okay, we're just going to run the ball. And then Brett would have to make a throw or two. It was, by the way, the formula they utilized against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And
no mystery that the game where Aaron Rodgers has his fewest pass attempts is the game they won. I mean, that's not a coincidence.
no, I don't think so at all. And like comparing the two sides of like the way the Chiefs supplemented and the way the Packers did.
Right.
Look who's starting a rookie right now and what position.
Mm.
They're starting a rookie running back
Yep.
and some vets that you can find around in the wide receiver spot. It's and to the Cowboy Titan thing, like just vice versa, right? Like the Cowboys, that's a matchup you had to do. Okay, good. Let's go. You can utilize and find reasons to run the football to neutralize whatever pass rusher you see over on the other side that you think might be a little bit of a problem. Find a good way to run it. This week, and as I've come a little bit more removed from the Titans game, the more and more I look at it, Negs, that was maybe one of the, I don't want to go too dramatic with it, but one of the worst matchups in the NFL for how they got to play offense because
Yep.
you dictated it. You got to be able to run the ball. And I think going in,
See,
they knew they probably weren't
going to be able to, but that's what's frustrating. And I said leading into the game, I was like, I'm not going to be surprised if they abandon the run because I know
Yeah.
they're going to have trouble running it. But that doesn't mean they should.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Fair.
flip it and look at the Titans, everyone in the Packers sphere is talking about, oh, they held him at 3.1 yards per carry. Yeah, but it allowed the Titans to live ahead of the sticks. It allowed the
Mm-hmm.
Titans to live in a area where they asked Tannehill to throw it on third down, only needing 3 yards or 4 yards. And okay, that's a way we can operate. That's how they wanted to operate. The Packers could operate that way. The Packers should absolutely operate that way. But for whatever reason, the quarterback, they won't, and that's
Yeah, they've
to their
decided not
detriment.
to.
That
Yeah.
is absolutely to their detriment. And at this point, I'm so frustrated by it because the path to victory is clear for this team. And for whatever reason, they refuse to embrace it.
And I wonder if it was like if the Cowboy game happens 2 weeks
Hmm.
earlier, do they have a
Right.
chance to write it? But then
Right.
again, dude, that was walking into Washington, right?
Yes.
Like you knew you had to
Yes.
run the ball against
Yes.
Washington because of what their pass rush is going to do. And when they walk up and say, I mean, I don't know, they didn't do anything different. They didn't do anything different. Well, then you knew what they were going to try to do. They were going to try
Right.
to beat you with Montez Sweat, who is a
Oh,
dog on the outside,
and what do they do?
guys that are going to run right at you.
And they played a ton of two shell. They played a ton of two
Mhm.
high. Both Rodgers and LaFleur said after the Washington game, they played a majority of two. You know how you get people out of two high? You run the
Run it at
fucking
them.
ball.
Run
You
it at
know?
them.
It,
Run it at
it's
them. Yep.
just it's so mind-numbingly frustrating. And I get it. I have no doubt someone in the comment section after after we put this up will say, they tried running and they didn't get anything. Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. In
Yep.
sticking with it, it's going to be frustrating. You're going to get 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You stick with it because that is your best path to victory. And two, it is also incumbent upon the staff to start utilizing these guys to the best of their ability and put them, they always say, I'm going to put our guys in the best position to succeed. You know what is not the best position to make A.J. Dillon succeed is to run zone out of gun. If I see one more zone run out of the shotgun, handed it to A.J. Dillon, I'm going to lose my mind. Put that man behind the quarterback, get him a full head of steam, and let him attack the line of scrimmage. Do some angle, do some gap, do a little counter action, and let him
Mhm.
get downhill. This stuff where he's standing next to Aaron and just takes the handoff, and then there's nowhere for him to go ever. It's just maddening to me. It's maddening.
And they threw the number out, or they actually didn't say the number. They're like, well, our numbers are really good running out of gun.
Oh,
That's
I
because
know.
you do it
Oh,
all the time.
I know.
Like, because that's
Right.
the only time it seems like you run the ball is kind of out of gun. So it's not all that
And
surprising
a lot
to
of
me that you had
times,
a lot more
yeah,
success
a lot
doing
of times, well, we're really successful running out of gun. Yeah, because Aaron Jones makes chicken salad out of chicken
it.
shit.
Yeah,
I mean, how many
man,
times does
all the
Jones
time,
get up
all
in
the
there and there's
time.
nowhere to go and he darts outside, gets around the corner and picks up 8 yards? Aaron Jones is responsible for that more than the gun is.
And
Holy
that's
cow.
that's the positions when they succeed. Man, Jones is really good when he's closer to the line. I think he's able to read it quicker and
Yep.
dive forward, take
Agreed.
advantage. And there's so much that has been, I guess, kind of seemingly obvious to us watching, yet whether it's just insubordinates, not wanting to, not giving a shit,
Right.
right? Like just deciding to do something different. They've focused their offense on the wrong things. And I could say the same deal of putting your guys in the right positions to win on the defensive side too.
Oh,
Like
boy.
as many times this week as you saw Quay Walker attacking downhill, I think one was because he knew that Derrick Henry was going to try to test him, and
Yep.
he did.
Yep.
He did. I thought he lived up to the challenge most of the times, but
I do too.
Derrick Henry is going to win battles. I mean, the guy's
Yeah.
going to go to the Hall of Fame out
He's
of
a
this
freight
generation for
train.
a
Yeah,
reason.
of course.
Right.
Of course.
But when you put Darnell Savage in slot coverage throughout,
Boy.
maybe that gets and I don't and again, Nags, like we talked about it how many different times, feel like a broken record. I don't know if it's coaching, I don't know if it's scheme, I don't know if it's players.
Yes.
All I know is one of somebody is supposed to can drop on the bottom of the screen on the whatever it is, 3rd and 10, where the cat runs a clean corner route for 20 yards and a first down. Like, and once it comes to week 11, whether it's scheme, whether it's personnel, whether it's talent, the coach has to make a decision on that, and that they have not been
Well,
able to
and
do.
that's what it's kind of
or been
mind
willing to do,
numbing.
I should say.
Right. And that's what's mind numbing is that week one, coming out of week one, you're like, okay, yeah, communication breakdowns, totally get it. First week of the season, blah, blah, blah. It's week 11, and you've still got issues in the secondary where this is day one install stuff. It's like, here's a stack set. We've got 2 receivers. If then, if one guy goes this way, I've got him. The other guy, I got him. But we see again and again defensive secondary members both taking one dude and another guy screaming wide open.
Yep.
How does that
And
happen in week fucking 11?
And both guys looking at each other like, wait,
afterwards, pointing and go with this or the other way. It's like Dom Capers never left. Like, what are we doing? That to me is just like, it's so frustrating.
And I would butcher the young man's name, so I'm not going to, but he's the defensive coordinator in Denver who had interviewed for the Packers defensive coordinator job. I saw Schneidman toss that one out there of how well he's performing, taking over Vic Fangio. All right,
a little frustrating.
Schneidman.
A little frustrating.
But at the beginning of this whole thing,
anytime
you can hire that was going to plan.
Anytime you can hire the defensive coordinator of a 0-16 team, you got to do it, man.
Yeah, you got to pounce. You do. You got to pounce.
Especially if you worked with him before. It's oh, it's rough, man.
Well, and I think it was because I consumed as much of it as I could on the way back on Thursday night. Drew and I listened to you right after on the gut reactions. We listened to Schneidman and Huber. No, it was fantastic. I liked how you said we're going to keep this short and brief. I think 14 times from when I counted.
Yeah.
Like 28 minutes in, and I'm like, Megs, you're going through it, dude. It's okay. Yeah. We're all going through it with you. We appreciate it. You gotta do it. You gotta lay it on out there. And I'm gonna try to be brief, but guess what? Team sucks. So I'm a little bit pissed right now. And I'm gonna keep going with it.
A little bit. Well, it's just tough when you see them end their season.
Totally.
You ended your season.
Right,
like you
after
ended your season.
Right
after all the hope.
All the hope and optimism came gushing right through you. You got slapped in the face of reality with this team is probably gonna be picking in the top 10. And
Crazy.
you did not anticipate
as of right now
that until
today,
10 was starting.
As we record, they have the 11th overall pick. 11th.
I mean, and to dig out of that, Nags, think about it. You're probably going to have to beat at least 1 to 2 teams you really have no business beating. They got no business beating Miami. They have no business winning this week against Philadelphia.
Philly and Miami. Really hope every other game, I could see it. But Philly and Miami. And you know what? Honestly, I could even see it in Philly. I really could. Like,
I could really see them doing it.
As far as like getting in there, they have no business doing it. But I could see it. Like they run the ball effectively. This team in Philadelphia has not been great against the run. Yeah, they have looked mortal these last 2 weeks. Like I could see it. Miami, totally no chance in Miami. Christmas is going to be the worst. It's like I'm so ready to have the worst fucking Christmas in like decades. It's going to be so embarrassing. Tyreek Hill is going to make this in secondary just look like it's going to look like the fucking 70s and 80s. It's going to be bombs away. Christmas.
I'm ready to have the worst fucking Christmas.
It's going to be the worst fucking Christmas of my adult life. I'm so ready for it. I'm so ready for it.
Yeah, it's going to be painful, dude. And
awful. And what's worse is like, the Packers are going to pull some bullshit and they're going to start winning and we're all going to get excited. Maybe they will run the table. And then Christmas will come and they'll absolutely get their ass kicked. And
so what you're saying is they're going to win 2 into the bye, beat the Rams out of the bye.
Everyone's going to be excited and everyone's going to be ready for it. Everyone's going to be talking playoffs. The Packers will send out their little, get ready for playoff tickets, and everyone will be talking. And then they'll get their butt kicked on Christmas.
And then Tyreek Hill breaks the single game receiving record
100%.
with like 291.
100%. Against this secondary? Are you kidding me?
Shades of Julio
Jones
on
Monday Night Football. They just made the Tennessee Titans wide receivers look like the greatest show on turf. What do you think Tyreek Hill is going to
do? Let alone Jalen Waddle. Yeah, I don't want to think about it. The only silver lining is I got Tua and Tyreek Hill stacked in a couple dynasty leagues, and that's going to be playoffs. So
you know what my stack is?
This is fun.
Dude. You know what my stack is? Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. So I'm coming off a good week, but
hey, there
overall,
you go.
It's been a pretty up and down season.
Like, yeah, no kidding. Man, they showed Devontae's numbers, and you just like
what's crazy is he's got good numbers on the season.
Oh, super good. So good. He's had
Like he's had like
four
feast and famine type year.
he's had like 3 or 4 straight 100-yard games, and they could end up winning the rest of their games,
Right.
and still the only thing people are going to remember from this year is, man, Devontae Adams was really frustrated. Did you see him shove over that reporter?
I know.
Like that's going to be the lasting image from
Of the
this year.
entire season for the Raiders.
He could catch. He'll have 1,600 receiving yards, and people will say, oh, "Yeah, shit year. Remember when he shoved over that reporter? What a jerk!"
I know, and he's literally on pace for like a career year numbers wise, which
Oh
is
yeah, huge year.
insane.
Mhm.
Which is insane when you think about the numbers he put up in Green Bay. That's just nuts. Okay, let's look at this Philly game. What do you think? How the Packers approach it? How does it come out? Where do they last past halftime? What do you think happens?
So, like you, I could see it. I see a path for it to be a good game late into the second half, right? Like
Right.
the Eagles don't stop the run, especially when you run it at them particularly well. That's why they brought in Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph. Pardon me.
Right.
They're a little dinged up front. I think you can make some hay moving it against them. Man, I have trouble thinking that you're going to slow down Hurts and that running game though. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
going to be,
Especially
in my
Hurts.
opinion, especially Hurts, and
Yeah.
especially if you don't have Devondre Campbell,
Yep.
because while Chris Barnes, probably
Laid
made
the
the
wood
highlight
on
of the night
Tannehill. That was a
on
great hit. I
Tannehill,
love that hit. Oh my God.
you're gonna get. I think you're gonna get shook a little bit better from
Mm.
Jalen Hurts than you will Ryan Tannehill
Just a
when he
little
gets up out of the pocket.
little
So a
Yeah,
little
possibly.
bit. They're
I mean,
dude.
you look at that
They're
game
an
in
impressive
Indy.
unit, but they're not that great. I
You
don't
look at
think
that.
they're
Well, I think they've hit a lull. That's for sure.
big
Right.
time. And
But
even when they were undefeated, I thought they were. I think they're very beatable. But when they play their way and play from ahead, they're
yeah,
really
well,
hard to beat.
that's a big part of it,
Yep.
right? Is that front on defense being able to get after it. Like that's,
Yeah.
and then they have Slay, who's so good at corner to take away your number one option, which will be fascinating to see where he lines up. Right? Does he go? Because look, the Packers are still operating as though Lazard is their number one, which is crazy to me, right?
Yeah.
Like there were so
False.
many. If you look at the tape, there's so many instances where Christian Watson is fucking wide open and doesn't get the ball.
Mhm.
But and I don't fault Rodgers for that because he's not the read,
No.
right? Like
Yep.
the read is clearly someplace else, and Rodgers is looking there. Blah blah blah. But man, Christian Watson is fucking open, yo. So I'm wondering if the Eagles kind of maybe not roll things his way, but they put Slay over there a little bit more than maybe they would have a couple weeks ago, just because it's clear Christian Watson's coming up, and it's clear that he is
Yeah.
the biggest
True.
problem as far as an offensive receiving weapon for the Packers. So I'm fascinated to see how Philly approaches that. And to their on offense, I mean, look at that game against Indy. They did nothing on offense most of the day until
Mhm.
Hurts started just running the ball. Like once they
Yep.
started running, and particularly running with the quarterback and giving Indy's defense some number issues, then that's when they started to move the ball. They basically salted the game away that way. To me, that's going to be the Packers' kryptonite. Like I just think
Mhm.
Barry's not had great success with against mobile quarterbacks. He's had 2 games in his tenure where I can kind of point to and go, okay, you did a decent job there. Whether it was Mahomes last year, both last year actually,
Mhm.
Mahomes and Russell Wilson. Like he did a pretty decent job against both of them, but neither of them were utilized as a primary running threat the way Hurts is in this Eagles offense.
Yeah, and Jalen is interesting from a couple of standpoints where he isn't. I actually think he's a better passer than people give him credit for. I think he's a
Agreed.
better passer
Very
than they
much. And
utilize
he's
him for.
improved
Like
too. That's the other thing.
he's improved.
Really
He can
improved.
spin it.
Yeah.
But when you play right, like they'll say, like, oh, they're just gonna play man on, and that's 11 on 11. I'm gonna run with the quarterback, and you're gonna try to tackle you. Dude, he is one of the scariest cats, like size wise,
Like in the open
in
field.
the NFL.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
he's a legit 230.
That's a load
he
coming
will-
at you.
Dude, he will bear it
He'll
into
truck you,
and
man.
he
Yeah.
knows how to move his body. He
Yeah.
will take a big hit, but he'll deliver one. So,
Yeah.
like, Allen is kind of the same way, but Jalen runs smarter and more physical.
Well,
than
and again,
Josh
they
Allen does
they
in that
draw
standpoint.
stuff up for him, whereas Allen
do.
kills you with
Yep.
his scrambling ability. Hurts is like they're drawing up plays for him, kind of like the Bears do with Justin Fields, who that's
Totally.
another
Yep.
aspect. That's going to be a fascinating game when the Packers have to play them in a couple weeks. But
Yeah, you're telling
yeah, I
me.
think to me that's going to be the big problem for the Packers. Like I think, yeah, they'll get thrown on. I think they're not shutting down anything in the passing game, but I just think they'll do enough in that regard as they have most of the year, and then they'll fall apart against the running quarterback.
The
That's my
most
guess.
frustrating thing that you will watch on Sunday night will be Devontae Smith getting 7-yard hitches
Oh my god.
like they're
Oh, like they're
gifts
giving
and
away
packages
candy.
from Amazon. They just walk on out and there's another one today. Oh,
Oh
it's
yeah.
December 22nd. Okay, there's another
You know
box
what's
out here.
what's
Sweet.
like the unforgettable image from that fucking Titans game is seeing, because what I do when I watch games initially, when I rewatch them, is
Mm-hmm.
I rewatch the broadcast, right? And then I'll go and look at the coach's tape. And then what I'll do is, while I'm rewatching the broadcast, if there's a particular play where, oh, what's the coverage there? Or how did that guy get behind him or whatever? And then I'll instantly go to the coach's tape. The most frustrating aspect of rewatching that game is on the broadcast where they always have the yellow line, right? It's
Yeah.
unofficial, whatever. Yo, the fucking Titans just kept running to the imaginary line and then running an out.
Mm-hmm.
All they did was
Oh
run to
yeah.
the sticks
To the sticks.
and then turn, and the ball was there. Like it was like 7-on-7. It was like
I saw
passing fucking drill. It was
I,
so frustrating.
I saw whatever Jeff Schwartz, who I love, by the
Love
way.
Jeff. Love Jeff.
When he hit you back or whatever, he's like, "Oh,
Right.
Tannehill just taking the easy one." You're like, "No, he did
Yeah.
it all night
All
because
night.
they let him have the easy stuff where
The
it's
welcome
not
mat.
supposed to be easy.
The welcome mat was laid out all night
The
long.
easy one in zone is supposed to be 5 yards underneath when it's 3rd and 10, and you come up and make a tackle to make it 4th and 3. Not Rudy Ford backpedaling until he's at the sticks.
Oh God.
God bless Rudy Ford.
I mean, a lot of that.
The kid has a lot of heart. I mean, that's
I
for
love
sure.
Rudy Ford. I like Rudy
That
Ford a
dude
lot.
has a lot of heart.
He plays fast. I'll give him that. Like I'm all in on
Yep.
anybody who goes 1,000 miles an hour, and is like, if I make a mistake, I'm going to do it at full speed. Like that's all.
Yeah.
That's all I can ask.
Dude, and that's why there were times watching the game where, again, even after it felt like the game was out of reach, because I don't know about you, it was like 8-minute mark after they get stopped.
Oh.
Maybe it's the 5-minute mark after they get stopped on the 4th and 3. You kind of the game's over, and you're still seeing
4th
certain
and 3,
cats.
Chuck it up for Jesus was pretty much the dagger. Yeah,
that was it. Yeah, that was it. And to still see 20 going on out there throughout, obviously, guys, they're paid professionals. I get it. I know, but. When you have 4 minutes of football and you know that it's pretty much cooked, that does tell you what you kind of have with certain guys.
It tells you who wants to play, right? Who wants
maybe
to
what
play.
You don't have with certain guys. Yeah.
No doubt about it. No question about it. I know who always brings it 1,000 every time we talk. It's Billy Schmid from 97.3 The Game.
And I brought beer this time, actually.
There you go. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. It's Beer and Ball. He's Bill. I'm Aaron. She Said TV 97.3 The Game. Make sure you check out Packers OT. Are you going to Philly?
Please.
Or no? You're going to
No.
Green Bay?
No, I'm not going to hang out with the Johns. I'm going to be back here.
All right. That sounds good. Well, tell Drew I say hello. And since I won't talk to you before then, happy Thanksgiving. Have a great holiday.
Amen. You too.
Hope you have a good time.
Safe one. And we'll talk next week on Bear Week.
We'll talk next week. Whatever the fuck happens with this Packers team, I can't wait. It's always good therapy. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Later, brother.